Yeah.
Just so you know.
Advanced philosophy memes. We make good memes. Advanced philosophy memes. Base fucking memes. Advanced philosophy memes. We make good memes. Advanced philosophy memes. Base fucking memes. Shoutouts to Andreas, Deacon, my boy Scott, Pedro, and everyone else that engages on my posts. And Sarah, keep it up, man. You'll get there someday. And everyone else for great memes.
All right, I have a question. I just read the status that said there's no neutral way to raise or educate a child. They're going to be indoctrinated in something. So it's up to you to make sure they're indoctrinated in the good things and not the bad things. Is this true?
Well, Howard Zinn once said, you cannot be neutral on a moving train, right? I think that that's kind of the idea, that you will indoctrinate them into one thing or another. The problem is if you indoctrinate them in isolation versus if you indoctrinate them in an open system. Because if you're in a fish tank or a monastery, you might be able to have like pure control over what someone believes or thinks. But if you're trying to teach, like for instance, here, there's all these Iranians that are raised believing in a sort of Talmudic Sharia, and then they come to a Slavic beach town where, you know, nudism is not considered. There's no one who told them that they have to be ashamed, you know? And so do they come here and tell these people they have to be ashamed? And are these people going to listen to like one fish in the sea? Or will the kids who are learning that back home, they're supposed to be ashamed of themselves, realize there's nothing that they need to be ashamed of about being themselves, and that other people are living ways that are completely functional without all of the self-shame? So you can also expect a certain reactionary quality. This is something we noticed with Destiny. Destiny's son is now promoting Hitler and etc. We're 3 minutes in, so I think we can say that finally. But you know, I think that happens because it's inevitable that teenagers will react to their parents, right? So if their parents are telling you one thing, then they're going to become this is kind of the nice thing about having a woke liberal generation, is it's going to cause the kids to go swing their nuts the other direction, right? But I don't know. It depends on what you want in terms of indoctrination, because probably the best tool is reverse psychology. If you're a really terrible parent, an alcoholic and a drug addict, that is the best way to make your kids into lifelong sober, hardworking yuppies, right? Like, I think that's the Family Ties model. Michael J. Fox becomes this young Republican because his parents are hippies.
Yeah. I would say, is there like a third way where instead of like swinging the opposite way where your parents are swinging, is there a way to transcend it? Maybe integrate both of what they have to offer, but seeing that it's not the full picture as an adult, and you're like, all right, that works, you know, that they tell me, but this is clearly something's up with that. And is it your prerogative to correct your parents, or are you just going to let them die with that? Be like, yeah, you know, you tried your best. Now it's my turn, you know, like, and I'll try to like fix some of the bugs of my fathers before me.
Anyone else have a thought on this? What do you guys think?
I mean, talking about like
influences and or indoctrinations. I mean, there's just so much out there that you can get swooped up in, even if you are like have helicopter parents and they kind of keep you inside. If you're seeing screens or if you're kind of out in the community in any way, it's hard not to get touched by these psyops and pushed agendas that you see in media, you see in Hollywood, you see in the newspapers, you see everywhere really. It's kind of hard to get away from it. So I mean, it's tough. I think it's tough to set down a path for anyone, because unless you're kind of there 24/7 to monitor what they see and how they see it and how they intake it. I mean, everyone's mind is different. Everyone's different. They're kind of going to take it in how they see fit anyways. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's a proper way of bringing someone up. You just got to kind of do your best to teach them certain values and hope that they stick to those. But, yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, I'm personally not a parent, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. Kurt
parent sits, right? Kurt, your parents are decent human beings, but they come from a world that doesn't exist anymore and everything's changed. What do you think about this?
I think Jordan is actually very apparent. It's very, very apparent. They lived in the world where they loved Cracker Barrel, and of course, now Cracker Barrel, of course, is changing its name to
Blacker Barrel.
Exactly.
They've hit the bottom of the Cracker Barrel.
Certainly they have. But indoctrination. Yeah, you guys ever been to Indoctrination Weekend? That's what they do. That's what they do with the armed forces. They have an indoctrination weekend, and really they just beat the crap out of you and say, okay, now you're an American, and that's what happens. So that's my little factoid for the year. You're welcome, everyone.
I mean, I wouldn't even know the ethical way to go about like neutral parenting, but for me, I would just want to give my offspring as many tools as they possibly can, and what they do with it, it's really not my call. I mean, I hope you don't do evil shit with it, but you know, that's why ideally you have multiple kids, so in case one goes bad, you still have some backups, you know.
I think you can indoctrinate your kids, but like the world changes so much. So I was just wondering, like, how do you guys feel indoctrinated? Like, you know, Chris, how did your parents try to indoctrinate you, or like were absent enough that made you more open-minded? And similarly, Kurt, you know, like, how did your parents, do you feel indoctrinated by your parents in some way? They seem like, you know, people always try to teach values to an extent.
Oh yeah, like if you don't know already, my parents were definitely really into the conservative spheres of like holiness church movements. And growing up in the 90s, it was actually there are still factions of that are really strict to this day. Like if you go like one level up of like strictness, I would say that you're talking about the Mennonite community. So it's like it was definitely tangential to that whole movement, I would say. And just, well, a lot of times women, they dress in an absolutely hideous fashion. You know, they got those like ankle-length jean skirts or dresses and hairs in their bonnets, whatever. So I got exposed to certain levels of, you know, indoctrination. And I think if I were to say anything now about it, it's like, well, the real problem with that is we don't exactly live in that world. We engage. It's not like we're not an Amish community where we're just totally shut off from everything else. Like we have to be, we can reject the world that's out there to a degree, but if we're interacting it, we have to know, we have to have tools to engage with it. You know what I mean? It's not just some distant foreign enemy. It's right here and it's in front of us, and we need to know what's going on. And so
try cupping your microphone with your hand because you got like wind feedback.
You're welcome. There's touch grass. You're welcome.
That's better.
But yeah, you need to be prepared for the world that's out there, and
You just interrupted my train of thought. It's okay. I forgive you. It's all right. But yeah, you need to be prepared for the world that's out there. And I remember coming out of high school and I felt like I had absolutely zero social skills, and in these social skills that I had to develop over time. And it's like, now I'm in my mid 30s. I feel like I can actually talk to people. And it's like, well, it feels like you really just got a late start on life, but that's okay. I don't feel victimized because I feel like, I love all the memes that say this generation is cooked, because a lot of them are true. We are an empire in decline. So generationally, feeling like you've got to start behind everyone else. Well, that's not just a feeling that I have. I feel like that's just kind of a lingering feeling towards society. So what do you do about it? There's always good things brewing out there. You just gotta nurture those good things that are brewing in society and collapsing societies, whatever. There's good ideas win out eventually, even if there's a lot of bad things going on.
Great.
We gotta get you a sun hat or something to block the wind. My God, bro, that's like it's incredible. At least I kind of got what you were saying.
That comment's great.
But as for, I guess, like what my dad tried to indoctrinate me with, we didn't spend that much time together when I was growing up. But every time we did, he'd always talk to me about like how like some tank worked, or how like Apache helicopter weapon systems worked, or how like parts in a car work and shit, or like driving techniques. I don't think he was good at socializing. I still think he's like bad at it. I mean, he's very polite. He's a likable guy to talk to, but he's not the kind of guy that'll like give you the tools to manipulate or I guess exploit social dynamics to get ahead in life. He just knew how to like say like, yeah, just be a stand-up guy, try not to lie. And if you're going to be an asshole, make sure you're the biggest asshole so nobody can fuck with you. And it's only wrong if you get caught, because that's when he's referencing like politicians in the world and like our world leaders. They're all criminals essentially to him, but he's like, the only difference between them and us is they don't get caught.
Sometimes they do, and nothing still happens, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I noticed someone walking today with a Blink-182 t-shirt, and I was like, this is 2025. And so theoretically, the 1995, 96, whenever the first Blink album out, like 30 years later, in 1995, I mean, like even the year 2000, 1998, probably, you would look back and see like 30-year-old music was the Beatles. So Blink-182 is like the new Beatles, and we're listening to music and seeing old people that were young when we were kids, and it completely changes the value structure, because the way people were reacting to the hippie movement is the way we're reacting to the punk rock movement, but it's like a similar vibe in this weird way, like sex, drugs, and rock and roll, or sort of like Nietzscheism. And a lot of the time you'll interact with people that were harmed by religion. So we were talking about Mennonites a second ago. There's a lot of people that feel like, accosted by religion, like religious groups were really, humans, and they messed up in their lives to some extent. And they're kids, so atheists, first generation atheists, almost all of the first generation atheists I know, they're all people that were raised in really religious families and in bad religious circumstances. So they have like a reaction to the church that they were from, and then they think all churches are evil and that religion's all evil, etc. And they have a really strong opinion about it, first generation atheists. But then they'll raise their kids, and the second generation atheists have less of a thing against religion because they didn't experience it, but they might have a disgust or a disrespect even for the atheist first generation people they met. They're like, hey, don't you realize that there's metaphysics or the simulation theory or whatever? And so first generation atheists are really good at deconstructionism of the church state. Second generation atheists are really good at Nietzschean re-establishment of reset theos. So they're more open-minded to religion because they haven't had an experience with it that makes them traumatized by it yet.
And they look at it objectively. They're like, this is useful, actually. Like,
there are things here that are useful, or things there that are useful. They're not as likely to have a religious war over one sectarian belief or another. They're more likely to cafeteria theos, pick something from Islam even. Like, you can totally grab some stuff from Islam. Why not? and then also grab stuff from the Catholics and the Orthodox or the Protestants. Or synthesis is an acceptable approach for a second generation atheist because they're not as afraid. And this is not just for atheism. This is just about for anything that some first generation has to rebel against the problems in the culture that hurt them as a child, reestablish a new world that's absent of those indoctrination techniques. But still, there are inherent indoctrinations, which the next generation will reject. And then they'll look back and try to figure out what was good from their grandparents' generation or great-grandparents' generation. And yeah, synthesis, recreate it in a new way. So when people say God is dead, or they talk about Nietzschean philosophy, like morals are dead, ethics are dead, that can be a good thing because the next generation is still looking for, it's a natural part of human nature to try to find what's right or wrong. That's what kids will do. If maybe it's not completely natural, maybe you do have to instill it to some extent to be looking for what's right or wrong as a kid. But this is why children love Paw Patrol or love, like toddlers want to watch shows where there's a good guy and a bad guy, and there's aesthetic that shows you this character's good and this character's bad, and that the bad guys self-destruct, and that the good guys control the destiny of a positive outcome, because that models that's all you have to do. It's kind of the way people say in school you shouldn't teach kids what to think, you teach them how to think. Teaching them reading, writing, and arithmetic, there are things you can teach a kid that will help them on their path to choosing what they think is in this world the contemporaneous ethic, because ethic exists, but it's like the Tao. It's not something that from one generation to the next will maintain the same material form, right?
Also,
it's
yeah,
quick, it changes.
I mean, what you're saying is probably older than that even. Like, even before the first Nickelodeon premiered in the States, there was like dime store novels, or even cheaper. I don't know how much these things fucking cost in the 1800s, but I think that was like, like if any kid who knew how to read would be able to pick up one of these books somewhere and read about like these heroes taking down bad guys and these crazy, probably more detailed exploits, like it must have been interesting. Or their only form of interesting entertainment, I guess.
Yeah, I think morals do establish themselves in different ways, but you can learn, like when the first generation of something is done, and we can say it was correct that it happened, it's usually because it was done out of love. So maybe the intention was a good intention, and it matched the intention in its action. So we could say, okay, well, this was done out of love. But then if you try to do the exact same material function that was out of love the generation prior, it becomes out of justice. It might be that, okay, well, it's not necessarily that it's out of love anymore, but it was right to do it before. So we're going to do it again because it's just that we do it, right? Maybe like divorce law or something works this way. And then the next time it happens, we're saying, well, it's no longer out of love, and it's not just maybe this time, but it's the law. This has become the law. Third time it's happened, third generation, it's out of the law. And then at a certain point, it doesn't even have to be the law, because everyone just does this thing that at one point was right, but materially it's no longer correct. It was originally a material function of a right thing. And now it's not even just, it's not even about the law. It's just a ritual that people are tearing the baby in half, like Solomon said to do, right? And so you have to constantly look at what was the intention behind a right action in the past and figure out what is the new action that emulates love, right? And
that's such a Western framework, though, how it paints it as like right and wrong. Those are loaded fucking words. I mean, what if you reframed it as like service to self versus service to others? I mean, service to self isn't always right and wrong, just like every right action isn't always right. Every wrong action isn't always wrong. There's certain contexts. And I think the more fundamental, universal way to look at it is what, like you said, intent. Like, what is the intention, the direction of your energy flowing? Is it service to self, service to others? And how calibrated is that system in you? Is like 90% of your actions throughout your day, every thought dedicated to 90% like service to self? Or do you give too much of yourself away to others? And suddenly you lose yourself as an individual. Is it like 90% service to others? Clearly there has to be a balance. And I think it's more complex than just right and wrong and like what we learned and what we're indoctrinated with, because clearly there is a flow of like a current of alternating energy between like, oh, this is my energy going to doing something good. I don't have to do this, but this is going to help others, even if, you know, it's not immediate. Or this is like purely for myself. I mean, when I do right things, most of the time, I'll admit it's begrudgingly. Like I'll throw something on the ground and I'll be like, I'll think about it, I'll be, oh, and then I'll go back and I'll pick it up and I'll throw it in the trash can. Or it's like I'll see the opportunity to hold the door open. I'll be like, oh, I'm lazy, but then I'm like, fuck it, and then I just do it anyway. 9 times out of 10, I still cave, and I'm like, yeah, all right, I'll do the right thing. And then I guess like every 1 out of 10 times, I'm like, fuck this, I'm in a rush, like screw this.
Yeah, I think maybe like right means the positive outcome for the most people or something like that.
Service
But,
to others.
Usually, yeah.
You have a critique on that, Jordan? What do you think?
Well, first of all, shout out to Old World Micmac. He said Kurt ATM wears less clothes indoors. I think that's hilarious. I think that's great.
Yeah, this is true. I've never seen him like covered up so much before.
Yeah.
I like him in a neoprene bodysuit. He actually looks like he's from my neck of the woods now. Now he looks like a real Santa Cruz kid. You know, I knew Jack O'Neill, so that's pretty cool. I went to his funi. I wore a body glove suit as a joke. He was a good guy, though. Shout out to Jack O'Neill. Neoprene. You know how the neoprene wetsuit was invented, right? Originally, it was designed for the Air Force, and they couldn't patent it. Body Glove wanted to make wetsuits using neoprene, but they looked into it and they're like, well, the military published this, so it can't be copywritten. You can't patent it. You can't control the creation of it. So Body Glove was just going to not make them at that point. They're like, what's the point? So then O'Neill is like, well, I can still sell them. They're super practical. Like if you're in the water and you're wearing a wool sweater, you'll always prefer a neoprene wetsuit. So he started selling wetsuits, and then anyone could make them. It's like one of the first open source products that, you know, they made the best of it. So no one wanted to compete with them. Body Glove still exists now as a company making other products like boogie boards and whatever they could try to eventually control, which they can't. But yeah, just making the best product, and everyone had an access to, anyone could make a wetsuit at that point, really. It's just, you'd always wanted an O'Neill one because O'Neill just did it better.
Yeah, DIY kits are awesome. I love that shit. I love like any company that'll produce a laptop that's entirely modular. It's like, hey, we still let you swap shit out. Or even like, I guess even appliances sometimes, like if they let you upgrade certain things or even fix it. And it really feels like the right to own, or the illusion of it. You feel me?
Yeah, nice. I watched a documentary about how these companies just make stuff to break down, right? Can't fix it, can't swap it out. They make it purposely hard just to get to these parts, and you have to be like, you have to look for experts on YouTube or risk breaking the product just to figure it out, or to make a maybe make a fix or a band-aid fix. It's freaking ridiculous.
I think there is a trade-off though, because anything with a fucking USB port or anything like probably runs on some firmware, and if it runs on firmware, chances are you could rewrite that shit. There's probably a way. There's got to be.
Project Cheney was a Billy Bong girl. You know, Billy Bong was like a major drug smuggling operation for a long time. Just, I mean,
the
starting
company?
with, yeah, for sure. There's like a documentary on this about how they were smuggling cocaine. Yeah, pretty interesting. You know, also marijuana was smuggled in the surfboards of Endless Summer, the documentary that Brian Wilson. Is that right?
I like Zoomies. I was into Zoomies. I bought skateboards from Zoomies, even though they were like total sellout company.
Yeah, I remember Zoomies.
Bruce Brown and Brian Wilson. Yeah, from Endless Summer. O'Neill wetsuit. Has Mandela affected to O'Neill wetsuit? No, I mean that's the way it was. I mean, at least for me, I'm from that reality. I met Jack O'Neill when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and was on his catamaran a number of times, and then knew him throughout my life. He died when he was like 94 or 95. Last time I saw him, he got rid of his stairway. He had a spiral stairway in his house. He had it pulled out and replaced it with a trampoline, so he could get to the second story up and down on a trampoline in his 90s.
This is a very California story. I'm gonna be honest.
Dude was really interesting, and you know,
I love
I don't
it.
want
I
to
love
get too
it.
deep into it, but
I want to live in that state amongst people like that.
those were the best. Yeah, those were the best people. Although, like, his son had a lot of trouble too, because his son was trying to smuggle cocaine one time, and
Of
the
course.
Mexican government blew up his boat. And
Of course
they
they
just
did.
blew up his boat, and the cocaine just floated up, and he had to pay the Mexican government like $250,000 in the 80s to get his son out of jail. So yeah, it's pretty hardcore.
I was explaining to.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, what were you saying? We can move on.
No, you first. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just explaining to one of these Chinese immigrant students at the dojo that America is like one of the only places where overnight you could get rich off crypto, buy a Ferrari, a machine gun, and a bottle of Jack Daniels in a single day.
I mean, sounds like Iraq, or like, you know, I think anywhere in the fourth world really is kind of like, that's the way America used to be.
Yeah.
You know, buying a gun in one day is really hard to do.
Because in China,
states.
because for them in like China to get rich, you have to be allowed to get rich. Like you had to have some utilitarian use for that position in the first place.
If you rise up too high, and it used to be that there was so much money going around, like 20 years ago in China, you could go, there was like free market. You wanted to see real free market. You go to China, go to Shenzhen, you go to Shanghai, you see in Wuhan, you want to sell gasoline, you go on the side of the road next to the prostitutes, next to the people selling food, and you hold a case of gasoline and you're pouring in people's car, and you could become a gas station. There was no licenses, there were no law, there was no rule. It was sometime in like 2008 or 9 after the
Yo, I got that gas, kid.
I think 2012 is when they had the fake breast milk, the fake baby formula scandal, where people were like, babies were being poisoned because people were making all sorts of fake eggs, fake foods, and people were selling counterfeit products in China, and they sold fake breast milk, which ended up killing people. That is definitely the Stargate Jack O'Neill.
I looked up Jack O'Neill and I saw this guy first, and I was just like, "What the hell are we talking about?
Can anyone of you guys explain why that is?
I highly doubt that it's an accident. There's definitely some reason for that, probably because Jack O'Neill was really involved. You know, he did other cool things. Let me pull up the actual
Jack O'Neill is off the name itself. It's like a really American comic book kind of action figure. I don't know. So I can see why they would use that name on a show like that.
Well, Jack O'Neill was involved with the Navy and the ONI, right? And the NIA, right? The Naval Intelligence Agency as well.
ONI.
Dude was a serious pirate. I mean, because he lost his eye in a major accident surfing.
Surfing? Okay.
Yeah.
He's an OG then.
Yeah.
I gave my eye
Really
for
cool guy.
surfing.
The dude was legit. Born in Oregon, in Southern California. When his wife died, he took his kids on a catamaran trip for 2 years around the world so they could see the world the way it was. And even now, the O'Neill intelligence, what do they call it? Like the O'Neill Sea Odyssey. That's what it is. That provides students with hands-on lessons about the ocean, but also works with the Navy and with the government to do deep sea research off the coast of California and all over the world. If there's anybody who's found the Stargate in the abyss, it's definitely Jack O'Neill. Like, this guy was unbelievably cool in a lot of ways. I think this is their catamaran. Yeah, the catamaran's so good because it's like it just skips across the water in such a nice way. It's a perfect boat. But okay, so how do morals change? So that was the other thing. So like you talked about how kids
on that, but
no, it's good. Like this probably relates in some way.
I do agree. I do kind of pretty much agree with the notion that most people see right as the outcome that works most positively for the most people, or seems the most moral, or obviously when death is involved, I mean anything involved really, especially if the news gets a hold of it and it gets spun, morals and stuff sometimes go out the window. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place right now, but just to answer your first question, yeah, I agree that most people think, okay, most people are satisfied here, that's the best way to go. And a lot of people's lives get ruined that way. For example, like someone commits a crime, the media gets a hold of it, and people are kind of convicted in the court of public opinion, and they think that, oh, that's the right thing, you know, this guy's a monster, until the evidence comes out, and then everyone looks like an idiot, right? But yeah, go ahead.
Bro, we got some kid from Budva who became a mod just now. Some kid yeah, bro. All right. This kid was in the town and he saw that we were YouTubing in Montenegro. Here, like, cheers to the Montenegrins.
Oh, nice.
You know? Yeah, bro.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Hey,
The
kid,
locals.
tell us what you think about morals and how your parents raised you, and if you have to follow the same rules that your parents followed, or like, do things change? Type that into the thing while we're talking, because I want to know your opinion too.
Not to put you on the spot, pal.
Yeah, put him on the spot. Make him freaking answer. Well, what does he think about changes in ethics? Like, bro, come on. You were like, your parents were in Yugoslavia. How is the Yugoslavian morals and what you had to do as a kid in your parents' generation different from what you have to do now? You guys keep answering while he thinks about that.
Well, all right, I'll jump in and say something. So the one thing about the whole bringing up people, yeah, great, come on. No one asked for this. So the one thing, I guess, is the most amazing thing you could teach a child is that they have a choice, that whatever they're being presented with, they don't just have to copy whatever they see, just like Andreas spoke about synthesizing. But even beyond that, you make up your own thing, and it can be something completely new and different. And in terms of the whole morality thing, I guess the ideal case, which doesn't happen too often, but is a potentiality, is to congregate with people that all practice this form of enlightened altruism, where what you do, you know, the service to self is the service to others and vice versa. And then the only thing you have to be careful about is that you are with the right people that somehow act in a similar way, so that it's a sustainable system and like a semi-permeable thing. And that's how I think you can actually grow something and create something positive in the world, because how much can you really do when you're all alone? Aren't we all interdependent in some way, shape, or form? And I think that's, at least for me, that's one of the goals or one of the trajectories that I think may be fruitful in the long run.
Yeah, morality. I just think you should just do whatever you want as long as you don't get in the way of other people doing whatever they want. And if everyone followed that rule, we'd be pretty good. I don't mean to be so reductive.
So it's you guys now. Jordan, ATM, terrorist, you can talk now. Andreas is busy finally.
Sure. What do you think, buddy? What do you think about morals in today's morals in the rat race today?
Oh, morality no longer exists. Now it's illegal to burn a flag, but you can totally legally burn a cross, and that means that the number one religion is now the state. But many people have predicted this already, so it's yeah, that read into that how you will. But so we've kind of rejected the idea that objective morality exists, but in fact, objective morality does kind of exist. The real sin is like putting yourself on a pedestal and trying to, you know, be the ultimate dictator of what you think God has determined to be that objective morality. But we know that objective morality to some degree does exist. So that's why, you know, like we get into crazy things like making flag burning illegal. You know, it's because at the heart of our soul, we want something to be guiding us. We want something to be guiding us, and that has been diverted into that thing being the empire or the state. And of course, we know that's, you know, that's just stupid. We know that's stupid because empires rise and fall all the time, and we're probably the ones that are next in line. So yeah, morality is a great thing. I think, you know, morality is the thing that really helps people have contentment at night, and contentment is the thing that keeps you younger for longer, or gives you a chance at having a satisfying life where you're not addicted to drugs or pills, or, you know, having to spend thousands of dollars on therapy, which I think is very defining for our generation for sure. No hate, no hate. Hope y'all experience the love of God in one form or another. But that's just the thing. It's like there's nobody in our society saying, "Hey, I hope you experience the love of God right now."
Maybe we should
How
start.
often you
Let's make it a thing.
Yeah.
I'll start
Look
saying
at-
that
look
to my
at-
homies.
Look what this kid said. So this kid I met today in Montenegro, who's now a mod. He said, "I have all the stuff they didn't have. I have everything, and I'm grateful." And then
That's
probably
how I
their goals
feel.
were like, yeah, right, exactly. Immigrant generations are kind of similar to like post-war generations. He said probably like their goal was to play as much outside as possible, and now our goals are to be the best at some games, fishing and some of that. And
Yeah.
he's young, so I imagine that'll extend to like being the best at anything, right? Like to be the best at somebody who wants to have a job, or like you're pushed forward. If you can survive something, if your parents can survive something, if you want your kids to be able to achieve more than you on some level, if possible, if like expansion of opportunity exists. Whereas also there's contrasting in America, maybe like this is the first generation where most people won't have a bigger house than their parents did. Like people were getting a small house from their apartment, then a bigger house. And in the 80s, you had like the 5-room, you have a house for every, you have a room for every kid in your house. And then divorces, you have like 2 houses. And now it's like, can you even get a house in America? I mean, the median age to start buying houses has increased. Like you're in your 30s or 40s before you even start looking at buying a house. People used to buy houses in their early 20s in America. And it's just harder and harder. Middle class, I'll take any house, not going to lie. Yeah, exactly. I think we're kind of lost. We're headed towards a war culture, while a lot of Europe is headed towards maybe like a trade culture. They think they're headed towards a opportunity culture. They're trying
Let's start
to
a
emulate
caravan,
American
guys. We'll just spend the rest of our lives in a communal caravan, a chain of RVs hooked up.
Okay, another thought I have is like Fortnite. So kids who play Fortnite are completely different than people that had to play a game where someone got hurt in real life. You can die a million times in Fortnite, and you can kill a million times in Fortnite. But it's
If you're good.
The world. I'm not bad, but the world gets better and better because you can see the virtualization of consequence. But in real life, you don't have virtual consequence. You have real consequence. If your friend gets his eye whacked out in some sort of a baseball game or something like that, you're going to like look at life completely differently because that kid's not getting his eye back, right? Whereas in a video game, you can learn about what happens if people have teamwork, work together, get hurt, etc. And so I wonder, like, if you found out tomorrow that all of reality is a simulation, that nothing is real, that we're living inside of a simulation, would that make you care more or less about morality?
I would still care about it the same, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't just make me feel good. It's very useful. It's multifaceted benefits for me in my perspective. So I'm like, I would still abide by it. I mean, at the end of the day, I still have to live with myself. I still have to die with myself. I'd like to be able to look back at the end of this little game and say, like, I'd like to think I didn't do as much damage. I genuinely feel bad about, so that's probably would be my prerogative, because I'm seeing the long game. I have to die. I have to die like this, as this person, with all the shit that I've done. Like, so I want to at least do a little more good at my self-perception at the end,
Similar, Jordan, you had a thought. So like, why is that not changed?
Well, you want to keep that. I would hope that people like me, people like myself you'd want to keep that system going. You wouldn't want everyone just to drop their morals all at the drop of a hat all at the same time, right? So yeah, I would want to, and for the people that I love and care about, I feel like I'd still want to treat them good, and I feel like I'd want to do the right thing. And whether it's a simulation or not, you've been kind of quote unquote programmed to your morals into you. So I feel like that they would stick, and you'd want them to stick.
I mean,
So
just
like
like if I'm
Chris,
sorry,
first.
just to interject, like even if I'm playing a stupid little video game, I feel genuinely bad when I make like really evil choices. I'm like, aw, like look at what I did for no reason.
Yeah, Knights of the Old Republic, dude. Star Wars is so hard. Like when you have to rob that girl on Telos, you're like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I should do this. I don't want to play this game, the dark side. Because even if they're like virtual characters, like it's like what Jesus said, like the thought of the sin is still a sin or something like that. I don't know. Kurt wins best background today. I agree. It's pretty nice
Agreed.
right there. That kind of looks where I'm at.
I'm waiting
but,
for
like,
someone
I'm
to
not
walk
saying
by
that.
and just totally troll all of us with their junk out or something.
Yeah, hopefully it's a nice girl. Kurt, what do you think about it? If
her
you lived
junk
in a,
out,
if you found out your whole world was like actually you were like living in a simulation, would that change the way you think about morals and do what's right and wrong, etc.?
We're already in a simulation. This is a great simulation of our creator. Don't you guys realize you're behind the game, man? You're way behind the game. Sorry to inform you. It's already a simulation. So, well, we figured it out. Sorry, it made for a short sale. But here we are.
Completely agreed.
You got to zoom in on Raph too. You got to zoom in on Raph too.
Do a close up of Raph sitting
There we
there. That's real legit. Okay, so okay. And what about like okay, so I asked ChatGPT, and so ChatGPT like extended this question. Is the NPC non-playing character mass consciousness meme just elitism, or does it reveal something true about human cognition? Do you guys, I mean, I don't know if that's a real question, but like basically, what do you think about you feel like a playing character because you know that you live in God's simulation and it's not anything more than an idea that's going on in sort of like a metaphysical space that's testing you. But how many people do you feel like live like that? Like, do you think that really deep down everyone's kind of a playing character and they're all trying to wrestle with right and wrong? Or is it really that there are just a lot of people that are in their own bubble that are just kind of acting out like Matrix agents?
Who's this question directed towards?
Yeah, sorry. Was that to Raph?
Anyone has a thought, just jump in there. So probably both of you.
I mean, if you look at it from the spiritual angle, for example, I would always like to say these little platitudes like, oh yeah, everyone's just the same soul living out different lifetimes in different bodies. That's essentially it, right? Even if it's true, like that God is playing the simulation of life through Raph, through Chris, through Andreas, through Jordan, through Kurt, just to see what it's like. Because maybe God was lonely, or maybe Source was lonely. I don't know. And technically, that would be a simulation in itself. So it's like I think there's a lot of different contexts that are pointing to this idea that what we're doing right now is pretty fleeting. I mean, it's worth it to do for one reason or another for an advanced being, but it's just, you know, you can't take any of this shit with you. You can't take your money with you. You can't take your relationships with you.
True, Dad.
Yeah. Who else thinks Andreas' thinking is more orderly and organized after hanging out with Germanic people in Germany?
Yeah, blame them, bro.
They're the only ones who made the trains run on time.
I'm saying it's the nightshades and the scopolamine. I totally want you to talk about this, Andreas.
What am I supposed to say? I mean, so okay, we've been eating a lot of vegetables. So like basically, if you don't eat meat all the time, like you eat salads all the time, right? Yeah, the green screen, bro. I know half of it is missing. It's because of this freaking light that I've got on here. If I like scoot back here, that makes it a little bit better. All right, look at that. So okay, so basically, when you look into mind control, there's all kinds of different ways people do mind control. And in America, in the CIA, they used to get people and interrogate them. They still do, but back when they started, they were looking at what drugs they can give people to mind control them. And I'm trying to figure out, like, is it like some weird stuff? And apparently the oldest one is even before the CIA, the FBI used it, even in the 1800s. And they were using stuff that was used by the Pinkerton detectives. Pinkertons have this like all-seeing eye logo, and they were detectives across America that would look, and even in England, that looked into Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, train robbers, etc. There you go. I'm going to mod really quickly Divulgence here as well, because he's on our show. Add as moderator. Sweet. Cool. You're in. Basically, in the 1800s, they were using something that was called scopolamine. They're still using it. It's still the number one mind control drug for interrogating people to make them tell you things that you don't want to tell them. But scopolamine is found in this like bellflower. So you can look up like the devil's breath. So in Colombia, they'll breathe this little powder in your face, and it makes you not realize that they're mind controlling you. You'll be told, hey, your mother is in the hospital. I need you to give me money to give your mother. And you're like, oh, okay. You just believe whatever's going on. And they're like, hey, I need you to empty out your bank account. And they'll take a bunch of money out of their bank accounts, like 5, 6 ATM machines. And then I need you to empty out your apartment. Sure, yeah, they'll empty out your apartment. And after a while, yeah, the devil's breath, that's the name of let me pull it up for you. Devil's breath, scopolamine right here. Devil's breath. It's this weird chemical, but what it is actually it's inside of a flower called bellflower, right? Scopolamine flower. I'll show you a picture of it. It's this like weird angel trumpet flower. This is what they use to mind control people. And it's a deliriant, right? So it's not like a psychedelic or something like that. It's a weird deliriant. But it's not just in this weird flower. Scopolamine is actually in a whole bunch of plants. It's actually in a bunch of plants called the nightshades. I'll show you the nightshade plants. And you can look into deadly nightshades. Like there's a lot of stories about the deadly nightshade. I think Rapunzel, the mom is pregnant, and Rapunzel's mother, she goes into a witch's garden and she gets a bunch of deadly nightshade to eat in her salad.
Yeah, I have a question real quick. So with that whole mind control flower, could you theoretically mind control yourself? Like if you record a voice of yourself telling you, it's like, oh, you love to read many books, you love learning and critical thinking, and then you just replay that over and over while you took this stuff, could you technically like hypnotize yourself?
You could totally hypnotize yourself, and that's like the interesting thing about mind control. You could control your own mind. Kurt, you wanted to say something?
Wild.
Were you? Are you trying to?
Many tomatoes. Oh.
Yes. Say it again.
We just need to put lots of tomatoes in each other's salads, and that's the key.
Yeah. You know where this is going. So basically, nightshade plants. I'm gonna mute you because your thing is so loud. Nightshade plants include tomatoes, potatoes, tobacco, eggplant, basically what vegetarians all love to eat, but also chili peppers. So if you eat a bunch of tomatoes, I was looking into where do I look to be careful about nightshades? And it was like, dude, be careful about potatoes and tomatoes. And then I was like, well, is it all tomatoes? And like, yeah, but the plants that are worse are like, because these plants use it as a defense mechanism. So when they're still kind of green and they're not ripe yet, they're like, don't eat me. So they put out this scopolamine to keep animals from eating the plants, right? But that's exactly what they started doing to pick them so that they can mature on a truck. You pick the tomato early and then it continues to mature on the truck. And that way you can get it for a week to some other place. So tobacco has scopolamine in it as well. All sorts of stuff that people eat all the time. And I was looking like, when did this start being common? Americans didn't eat French fries with ketchup until the Bernaysian period, right? So mind control period of public relations with Edward Bernays, when people started saying, I like Ike, instead of 4 doctors recommend this product.
And ladies started smoking Lucky Strikes?
Yeah, all of this is connected. There's a point in America where they start pushing this idea of do what you want to do. Just we're going to sell you stuff, whatever you want, we're going to sell it to you. But they get you to want it. And as you know, I'm looking around, like when I hear about this, having ketchup on French fries, everyone's smoking cigarettes, and realizing, dude, you guys don't know how much of your mind is controlled right now because you're so easily influenced by what people tell you all of a sudden. And sure, you're right. Like a lot of Slavic witches will use the nightshade plant. There's a whole thing on the history of using deliriants in order to self-control your own mind. But for the most part, you have to be, but you got to be really careful because you could very easily be influenced by other sources than yourself. You basically need to be in isolation to do something like that. And it's still super dangerous because too much nightshade can kill you or make you blind or, make you super sick. It's like certain small amounts of nightshade. They do make a sort of acetylated scopolamine for seasickness that is really popular in Europe. If you get seasickness, they give you this pill that helps you like deal with vertigo, etc. Because then you believe that you're in balance. It's really crazy how much this thing has been for hundreds of years used, but then particularly it became everyone in America was given nightshades essentially at a certain point. It just becomes majorly part of our culture. and people just start believing in it, right? They believe in whatever they're told.
Nightshade. It's good for you, kids. Eat your French fries.
So, I mean, from like eating French fries and ketchup and stuff, like I'm just looking at some of the effects of nightshade. Like you'd have to be eating like quite a bit of this stuff to have these mental effects, right?
It depends again. So like if they pick the tomatoes before they're ripe,
Right.
then you're going to have more scopolamine. If you get the potatoes and they're kind of green, there'll be more scopolamine. And yeah, if you're eating every day, all the time, ketchup on French fries while smoking cigarettes, you're going to have far more scopolamine than you realize. And you develop a tolerance to it. And this is basically everyone's diet, eating potatoes every day or eating a salad, even with tomatoes every day. The more you consume, the more your body's constantly has nightshades in its system. So you're probably not going to have hyper deliriant qualities like someone blew some of this powder in your face, but you might also drive down the highway and see a billboard that says, you know, McDonald's in bright red and yellow, and it just makes you think, I want that.
It makes you want it.
You smell the
What I'm
bag
thinking of
opening and
here-
you're like, I want more McDonald's.
Okay.
That
What I'm
might be the
thinking of here
entire
is-
premise behind inventing cherry tomatoes. They're just really tiny tomatoes with lots of the drug in it, so we can control people's minds. But they don't even taste good. They're just horrible. But
Yeah.
I ate too many French fries, and now I keep buying Microsoft Word over and over again. Is this normal?
But
There's
one,
some
the
studies
only
on
thing I
that.
will say, I feel like Nightshade probably has some super magical qualities to it. So if you're like I don't know, going to the Amazons and like smoking some DMT, and there's some nightshades thrown in there, who knows what'll happen? I don't know. I've never done DMT. I just know it has truly magical qualities.
Well, because also nightshades have MAOI in them. Like certain ones like tobacco have large MAOI. So it's practical to take an MAOI with dimethyltryptamine. So yeah, there is definitely a connection between Peruvian nightshades and ayahuasca, etc.
Are we about to reach our apothecary era? We're about to learn how to make aphrodisiacs, holistic herbs and medications, tripped out teas. Let's get into it, guys.
We can start doing some how-to videos. Let's do it together.
The problem with this stuff is you need a guinea pig. You need someone willing to like test your stuff out, whether it's yourself or other people. But then again, I don't know.
think
We
people
have
would.
like,
You can do that, Chris. You're totally down for that.
I would try some things. I'll probably try like acupuncture maybe. But I think if you do it wrong, you could also like really fuck your chi points up or something, your meridian points.
We'll just give you some
I mean-
crazy drugs to smoke.
I think there's definitely a connection though. Like, do these companies were people eating French fries with ketchup so much in the 1800s? Not so much, right? And then Bernays comes out, and all of a sudden, it's pushed by every possible restaurant. Everyone's pushing French fries with ketchup and cigarettes, right? Cigarettes particularly become this major thing, and it's not just because it's poisonous; it's because it helps with advertising. And not just advertising, but the power of suggestion to make you want to vote for certain people, right? Like, again, I like Ike. You can see the difference between vote for this person and then the beginning of Bernaysian I like Ike, where you're like driving down the highway and you see this sign about Eisenhower that says I like Ike. And you're like, I guess I do. I like Ike. What does that say? It says I like Ike. I like Ike. I mean, that happened for a reason. And it's hard to push away from it that there are so many things we think we're in charge of, but we're being subtly conditioned to want. I had a friend who worked in a dispensary, and he used to practice NLP all day just to see how good he was at it. He'd like put his hands on the table, put one hand a little bit further forward with his longest finger kind of above a certain plant, just to see, like, you can pick whichever one you want. What you pick one of these, and then the guy's like, I think I want that one, and just seeing if he could convince the guy without saying anything to want the thing that he's suggesting. And just constantly manipulating people, even though it wasn't that he really wanted to be manipulating them for that product specifically. He just wanted to see how easy it was to manipulate people into thinking they're making a choice, which it is. It's really easy to get people to want to make a choice and think that they're in charge of their own destiny when they're not.
or like getting information out of people through advanced interrogation methods. Trust me, you want to tell me the truth and what really happened, what you actually did. No, I don't. And you just keep asking the same shit over and over
You're gonna
and
feel
over again.
way better. You're gonna feel way better. I can tell that you want to say it. I know that you want to say it, and you know you want to say it.
Yeah. It
Totally.
is pretty simple. You don't even need drugs sometimes.
Yeah, I do feel like we live in a kind of post power of suggestion world, though. That was something that was probably bigger in our parents' generation than ever. And today, I think a lot of kids, maybe I'm hoping, I'm not sure if it's true, but at least in our generation, I think we're a lot more skeptical because of advertisement. Like I remember seeing cool kids with Razor scooters drinking Go-Gurt in a commercial. And they're like, all the kids love Go-Gurt. All the kids love this scooter. And thinking to myself, these kids don't really look like they're from California. They're faking it. They're probably from North Carolina or something like that. It's probably shot in Florida, but they're pretending it's in California. And most of the kids I know aren't like this. But then kids around the country see this commercial, think it's what Californians are like, buy the Go-Gurt product. And then Californians start seeing those girls, and then they want to be like those girls. And then Californians actually become like the thing that they convince people from the East Coast Californians were like in the first place. And it takes 5 to 7 years, but it becomes culturally real. You know, so how many people really dress the way costumers dressed people in 90s sitcoms? How many people do now? Right? If you compare Saved by the Bell outfits to what people were actually wearing during the Nirvana period, they didn't dress like Saved by the Bell. But then in the after what the band Jet and the early 2000s, because 2003 was about 70s culture, that 70s show, etc., started becoming really big. And I wasn't there for the 70s, but I imagine that they have a fake way of looking at the 70s the same way Stranger Things is a fake way of looking at the 80s. And now we have a fake way of looking at the 90s. And if you lived through it, you can see, you're like, well, actually, this is the way I wanted to dress, or this is the way I felt like dressing, but this is not the way anyone was. This is not accurate to the actual experience that people had. But it will replace reality the same way that chocolate syrup looks more like blood than actual blood does in a black and white film. Because if it's real, it looks fake. And if it's fake, you can fake it to look more real than reality. That's basically our entire scenario.
Now it's happening on like social media. Like you'll see some chick from LA moving to Tennessee or something and saying this is what it's like on a daily Tennessee grind, and it's like nothing what local Tennessee people do. But since this girl's coming with like so many followers from her social media thing, everyone's like, oh yeah, this is probably what that small town Tennessee culture is like. I guess it's basically what you're saying, just on a different scale, enabled by short form internet content, rapid fire.
Who's that guy? Baudrillard or whatever, who, Jean Baudrillard. Baudrillard, European Graduate School, Jean Baudrillard. Is I saying that right? How would you say that?
Baudrillard.
Baudrillard, okay. French sociologist and philosopher, interest in cultural studies, best known for his analysis of media, talking about hyper reality, right? Wrote about the diverse subject, consumerism, critique of economy, social history of aesthetics. You seem to know about him. What would you say in terms of hyper reality and Baudrillard? Basically the idea that in his book, Simulacra and Simulation, hyperreality is defined as a generation of models of a real without an origin of reality. So this is basically what the 90s were for. Like here, so many people in Europe love the show Friends. And the only people I knew who liked Friends growing up were like my chemistry teacher, or people that were so detached from reality and wanted an anchoring point to believe in a false reality. But now I meet people all the time who actually emulate Friends, because that is a model for human behavior that isn't based in reality, right? There's no one who like Friends is about rich kids who clearly their parents are paying for them to exist. They're not actually making as much money as those jobs say. There's no way they have these giant apartments. If they ever told, like, whoever told you were going to, like, before work, go to your friend's apartment and have breakfast together before they started their day, was lying to you. Like, the Friends is not real in any way. But there are people now that will emulate it because simulacra and simulation, that there are things that we can anchor into a false reality that people will model themselves on and create a new reality. Do you believe that all great things start out as ideas? I mean, everything great. Was it natural, or is it something that starts out as a perversion of an idea in someone's head?
First of all, I don't think people originate ideas. I think ideas exist externally from us, and we have to be in a state to receive certain ideas and to actually manifest them into reality. So it's like, especially this is most prominent in creativity. I think it was like Prince said, like, he'll get an idea for a song and he was like, if I don't make this song right now, someone else is going to come and steal the idea, which he's right, because the idea he knew didn't really come from him. It was already there. He just happened to receive it at that time. And if he didn't manifest it, then that idea would have just found someone else. Maybe we call them spirits. I don't know. I don't know what these things are.
But people's ideas are informed by this false reality then, because if these ideas are transient, but they're being translated by your experiences, maybe through, like, in the 90s, people remembering the Beatles as being more important than they were, or Blink-182 being more iconic than it is. I mean, is memory itself a PR construct?
Oh, sorry. Can you pull those back up again? I didn't get a chance to read out all three of those.
Here, yeah. So I'm trying right here, but it's not letting me add it back. What's going on? Oh, because Raphael is pulling up something to show. That's why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so anybody who's interested in Jean Baudrillard, I read this book a long time ago. It's a pretty interesting critique of consumerism. So as it says, La Société de Consommation, or the consumer society. This one, along with La Société du Spectacle, which may also, by him, the Society of the Spectacle. I mean, back then, I wasn't that deep into capitalist theory yet, or understanding why capitalism, at least in the current form, may be the best system, although we don't really have capitalism. That's the other part of it, right? But anyways, anyone who is interested in Jean Baudrillard and this whole simulation and simulacra can very much also recommend this book, which strangely enough is not available on an original English Wikipedia here, which I don't really understand why. But yeah, here you can see talking about mass consumption, means of satisfying needs. All advertisement has no meaning. It only carries meanings. These meanings and the conditions to which they appeal are never personal. They are all differential. They are marginal and combinatorial. This is to say, they are part of the industrial production of differences, by which I believe the system of consumption would be most forcefully defined. It makes more sense reading the book. It's quite understandable, actually. If I remember correctly, it's like into short segments, which makes
it user-friendly.
Yeah, it's user-friendly to read. Yeah, so that's another great book by this guy.
And sorry, what was the title again?
La Société de Consommation, or I guess in English it would be the Consumerist Society.
Wait, say it in French again.
La Société de Consommation.
Yeah, it just kind of rolls off the tongue there, doesn't it?
Man, do I love consummation.
I mean, I don't know. Advertising must be so bizarre from the perspective of like the person actually like triggering it. I mean, because on an individual level, as a human being, you would think to yourself, oh, there's no way one stupid commercial is going to dictate my actions. But it's not about one person. It's like if you push that button, it's going to show that one commercial to like billions of people. And then within that pool of like a sample size, I guess, like you're going to extract like people who would buy your product just because they heard of it, specifically through your advertisement. I think that's like pretty interesting how, like, on an individual level, people could be capable of such like infinite things that are so unpredictable, but then like on a collective level, they really are just statistics that behave in like very predictable or even enforced patterns, I guess you could say, right?
Coca-Cola. Oh man, here we go. My camera. Okay, Coca-Cola, right? Because Coca-Cola isn't just a product, it's a utopian fantasy. If you've seen the 1968 commercial, I'd like the world to buy a Coke. Do you know that one?
Yeah, that was like in the final episode of Mad Men, which, yeah, supposedly that was his
I love that episode.
Spoiler. Yeah, that's his final project. Like he goes up, I don't know, he's like in rehab and he's having like an ayahuasca trip or something. He's like, oh, that's it. You need to buy the world a Coke, and he creates that ad. Of course, that part's fictional, but the show is still, I'd say, pretty good, you know, because it shows all the hypocrisies of the 1950s and 1960s and a lot of flaws of consumerism in general. But yeah, sorry, I might be going off topic now, but it is
No, it's
still
perfect.
iconic that was in the final episode of Mad Men.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Hands Across America. Would Hands Across America have happened without the Coca-Cola Utopia commercial?
People of every ethnicity could watch this commercial and be like, "See, there's an Asian guy there. Coke is for me too." Everyone gets to have a Coke. Did you see the commercial?
Hands Across America totally built this idea, and it's what does Coca-Cola represent? Because it's red, it represents America on such a strong level. It represents not just America, but like a unitary vision, a uniform vision, an individual vision for America that everyone can be part of, the American dream, right? And so Hands Across America is the maybe culmination of the Coca-Cola Utopia. And what is Coca-Cola? It's this weird missionary product because missionaries go all around the world, kind of dressed like Santa Claus in bright red, bringing this red product, these red boxes that could be Bibles, but instead it's this black syrup, this like weird dark glass drink in this sort of feminizing, curvaceous bottle that represents everything that you want, whatever your dream is. Coca-Cola makes it possible, right?
It's really good if I need to poop my pants on any day.
What?
I think colas, I don't know if this was the original intent, but I think they're really good at making your bowels move. Like they're pretty decent laxatives.
Have a Coke and a smoke and you're ready to go, right?
Well, this is true too, because Marlboro cigarettes didn't just represent relaxation, right? Because there was also this idea like if you want to relax, smoke a cigarette. So you tie it to something like no longer working. You take this break, a cigarette break, right? But cigarettes also had different genres of expression. And the Marlboro man, the cowboy, represented American rugged freedom and masculinity and frontier spirit. And to this day, I'll see people with Marlboro cartons here. Like this is like a kind of like the brick of cocaine or the Bitcoin of the Balkans were Marlboro cartons.
Yo, speaking of which, by the way, Constantine, the Keanu Reeves movie, heavily put me onto Chinese cigarettes. Ever since that movie, I was like, yo, the aesthetic of these Chinese cigarettes are awesome. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, but that also makes sense. Like, what does a Chinese cigarette represent, right? Because it represents like a competence, an achievement, that China's made it, right? Because you're emulating the West. Like we're making our own emulation. This is we're dictating our own future. China, all of the knockoff products of China, they have an entire different ideology, which is that we can do it ourselves. It's like the Khrushchev ideology of the Soviet Union. Like we don't need Western products. We need to manufacture our own destiny. And sure, you might have associated your freedom with Coca-Cola or with McDonald's or something from America, but we could make that ourselves. We could make our own destiny by making our own association with our own freedom.
Also, by the way, I just want to point out one of my favorite depictions of cigarettes in sci-fi was in The Fifth Element when it was like 70% filter and only 30% cigarette. I still remember it, and it lit itself. I think it was like a self-lighting cigarette, but that was like my favorite depiction.
That was what, a Chinese cigarette?
No, it was a different movie. It was just yeah, The Fifth Element with Bruce Willis.
Oh, okay.
I forget if it's Camel or Marlboro, what cigarette they have.
Yeah, that was really funny. That's the future, guys.
I want to see that now. Which cigarette
That's
is
what you have
it?
to look forward to, Chris.
Yep. I'll probably just.
I wonder. It doesn't say what kind of cigarette it is.
Look at that. Look at that. Look, that's all filter.
Oh my god.
Awesome.
One quick dose of cigarette.
People smoking it down to the filter with that baby. Holy.
Hell yeah.
Wow. That's actually hilarious.
That was the future for sure. Just one hit of cigarette, realistically.
Chris would be lighting up the whole show because he's like, I'm just gonna have one smoke, guys, and then he's like,
That was good.
Seven smokes later. All right.
Apple computers, right? Because Apple did the 1984 Macintosh commercial.
Right.
And the whole idea that they're in Big Brother's 1984, computers are controlling your world, they're spying on you, there's this huge technocracy. But Apple liberates the computer by creating an offline personal computer. Like this, the Mac is the PC, it's the personal computer. So it's something that you can use that isn't tied into, this is before the internet, isn't tied into everyone else's machine. Because back then, most computers were tied into a giant network from the 60s on already. And we've moved back from that. I mean, Pepsi took over Apple and then we got connected to the internet again. But the idea that you could liberate yourself rather than enslave yourself, and that the apple is the fruit of knowledge, right? The sort of, that Garden of Eden kind of idea of the Macintosh, the rainbow apple. A Macintosh apple is an apple of every color, right? So the satanic inversion to make this thing that was supposed to enslave you into like a freeing thing.
You're trapped inside an Apple Mac terminal.
Can you think of other like commercialism that exploited you as a kid, made you feel like it was the answer to making you more free, making you more yourself, like some ridiculous thing that you saw?
Definitely fucking Pokemon. I remember I was like 6 years old and I got like a free VHS in the mail. And I was like, I never get a VHS in the mail. And somehow Toys R Us knew that my residence had a kid living there. So I watched it and it was just this pure indoctrination video. It's like, this is the world of pocket monsters. And I was instantly hooked. And for many years, probably invested a lot into the Pokemon franchise. And that was pretty successful. I mean, they're about as big as South Park now. It's like, I feel like Pokemon is one of those things that'll never fucking die. Sorry, Andres, you're muted.
Do you guys
I'm just trying to help.
No.
Do you remember the first Super Mario 64 commercial? I think I do remember what that one was like. If I'm not wrong, it featured like a couple of senior citizens just like jumping around a field and going like making Mario noises. You know what I mean? I think that was the first one.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, if you go back and watch a lot of those commercials, I do think for me, they hit a lot of like nostalgia, but they definitely show you a lot about what was going on at the time, I think. But I think I actually remember this one now. This one I don't remember as well.
Do you remember the band Sprite commercial? This one was so good. Hold on, let me get the audio for it because this is one of my favorite commercials of all time, and they should have kept it on TV, but it was like a little too scary for people.
Mom, we're thirsty.
Well, I've got 2 glasses of Sunfizz coming right up.
Sunfizz, that's our favorite.
That's because there's a delicious ray of sunshine in every drop.
Come on, guys.
I'm filled with nature's goodness.
This is awesome.
Trust your gut, not some cartoon character.
That's awesome.
I miss the 90s. There's like a break from your reality. You know, it's like, what happens if this cartoon character jumps off of the label and starts telling you that there's vitamins in the drink? Run. Don't.
So that's where Whitest Kids You Know got the idea, because there was this one skit they had where it's like they were trying to pitch a commercial for this grape juice drink, and it's this giant grape monster breaks, and he's like, "I'm gonna grape you, kids. I'm gonna tie you to and grape you in the mouth." And then they're like, "Whoa, what?" Yeah, he grapes you in the mouth. Yeah. Okay.
You kids look like you can use a delicious fruity beverage.
Grape blast. I'm gonna grape you
in the mouth.
I'm gonna grape you.
Dude, that show is legendary. I still remember that show, and there's nothing quite like it since then. I mean, there was like YouTube stuff now.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's gonna beat it. Like that's pretty much the it's from another time. So how has the world changed? Like you can't do stuff like that anymore, right? Is that how you feel, or do you think the world's more free or less free from the 90s when they could do commercials and television shows like that?
Less free. regular people have become the commercials.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, if I want to, like, a lot of times, if I'm spreading, like, trying to help someone, it's like with a problem they have, a lot of times it involves like advertising a product to them. It's like, oh, you should try this solution. Takes that shit right off in like 6 seconds. Even if I'm right, it's still like, like advertising. They don't even need a fucking TV anymore. They just got me to do it.
Yeah, social media is kind of faking our reality. Sorry, Jordan, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna add, like, I feel like when I hear products that are less known, I feel like almost like obliged to like tell people, because it's like, oh, they're not gonna hear it somewhere else, so I better tell them. So yeah, it's definitely a form of advertising. That word of mouth, man, it's key. It's key.
I mean, all right, let's think about how marketing actually works, right? It's a funnel. So basically at the very top, you have the widest net possible. And then that's like they first hear about the product. Then the next phase of the funnel is, all right, they're thinking about buying the product. Then the next part of the funnel is they buy it. All the way towards the end, the bottom, is that we're a loyal customer. And a loyal customer, the benefit of having one of those is they advertise for you for free. And yeah, I mean, all the models
how much of your
that.
identity, how much of your identity is owned by, like, is owned corporate intellectual property, right? Like if you're, you think that you're only a person if you've got an Abercrombie and Fitch or Calvin Klein clothing, and you have to drink this soda pop, or you have to listen to this music that MTV provided you. I mean, how much of your like childhood is even yours? The same thing with the internet now. How much of you do you feel like is owned by this intellectual property that's not even you?
And just one thing I want to say, isn't even well documented that at least up to the, I guess, 50s or something, when products were advertised, at the very least they said, oh, look, it's Mariana cough syrup with whatever, sativa or indica or something, or they said it's Coke with Coke, or they tried to make some kind of claim, this car will run for a very long time. And then at some point, I'm not sure, in the 50s or whenever, it completely switched over just to, now the ad for Coca-Cola is love, or whatever, or now they put your name on the can or something like that. It's completely
your name
to anything that the product actually could do for you. It's just about a good feeling. Like the car commercial is the best example, right? You just see a nice car driving around. You have no idea what the car is good for, what the horsepower is, or anything like that. It just tries to convey a good feeling, which of course is completely detached from anything that the product could actually do for.
Yeah,
Baudrillard has a book called The Gulf War Did Not Happen. Also, this whole idea. I mean, so like, how much of false collective memory from media replaces real history? I mean, how much do you even remember about what really happened because you didn't? The Olympics swimmer, the Olympic ice skater who ran over the other girl and hurt her legs. Right? Is that called the Olympic ice skater girl?
Sorry, the one that like hit her in the throat or the face, or the one that?
Yeah, well, she like ran over her legs or whatever. Nancy Kerrigan.
Right.
Nancy Kerrigan, right? So there's the assault of Nancy Kerrigan. So when the Gulf War ended, it was like the beginning of CNN's 24-hour-a-day live stream. And so they live streamed the Gulf War nonstop until people were over the Gulf War, and they needed the next story. And so the next story was that Nancy Kerrigan assaulted this, or that Tanya Harding assaulted Nancy Kerrigan, which is not actually true, apparently.
Yes, this story. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so like if you've seen the video, it's like her just yelling, "Why? Why?" It's a super excruciating scream, and her legs are like hit because some guy hit her. But we don't know the story accurately because CNN, they went 24 hours a day from the Gulf War to 24 hours a day about Nancy Kerrigan. And so everyone everywhere else in the world knows the story. I can talk to people's mothers and fathers from an older generation that remember the Nancy Kerrigan story, but they don't know what actually happened. But it's like they were there because we have a false collective memory that's been created about these historical events. And we use them to tell us, like, this is what history was. This is what really happened then. I remember that on the news, right? I remember the commercials. I remember the sitcoms talking about it, right? I remember NYPD Blue had episodes about school shootings. And so I know that school shootings are real because I saw a sitcom about it. The whole idea of our reality is from a false collective memory, and how much that replaces real history. And does it matter what really happened? If a tree falls in the woods, or if a tree doesn't fall in the woods, but they make a CGI video of a tree falling for CNN, did the tree fall? Right? Does it matter? Dude, and Andrew made it. What's up, bro?
Yo, how's it going, everybody?
Yo.
Hey.
Long
What's up,
time
bro?
no-
We were talking about false collective memory replacing true history and how the 90s isn't real and anything. What do you think about false collective memory and advertising replacing our history?
It's like, it was purple ketchup real?
Green ketchup.
Oh, yeah,
Green, they had purple. They had purple.
Yeah, they had
Clear,
purple and
they had-
green.
They had clear. I remember clear ketchup.
clear ketchup.
Like cum.
Oh my, where did they get the clear tomatoes from?
Oh,
Just
clear
pure
ketchup? I
scopolamine.
don't remember clear ketchup. What the hell?
I mean, yeah, there's a, I mean, yeah, false collective memory. But were you sort of gonna segue into how like those false memories can be implanted by like media as well?
Clear ketchup.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, here's clear ketchup, by the way. I remember seeing this and being like, that cannot be good. You know, that cannot be good for you. That has to be dangerous. I mean, this was like the beginning of when people started paying more for organics because chemicals went a little too far. I feel like that was also the idea, like to convince us that we wanted
Go ahead,
organic
kid.
foods.
Eat the forbidden clear ketchup. You know you want to.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Andrew, elaborate.
I mean, the Mandela effect touches on that a lot, and you know that could be attributed to all sorts of things. People are saying, you know, there's converging realities because of CERN, but like memory and perception is really easy to influence and manipulate. You know, I'm pretty sure that they have patents on machines that could, you know, directly send like what signals that would be interpreted as sounds to whoever the intended receiver, you know. So I'm
They
sure
could put
that,
thoughts in your head.
yeah, I'm sure similar things could happen with like images and memories and things like that. They yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less, but yeah, when you were talking about the ice skater, I knew Nancy Kerrigan, you know, Tanya Harding. They made like a TV movie about it, or like a Netflix movie about it with Margot Robbie, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
But-
I was just going to say that. It's
She's a
called
pretty
I,
lady.
Tanya.
Yeah. Yep. So you know, it's even the namesake of the Mandela effect. Like, how many people remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison, and then, you know, how many, the fruit of the loom thing really gets me.
Same here. Yeah.
Realistically, what do you think is the technology that enabled this kind of like simulation framework building over quote unquote reality? I mean, I think personally it was the printing press. The minute people figured out how to like print many sheets of the same text and spread it across like really fast, it was over. Like that was it. They were in full control.
Yes. Yeah. No, I wholeheartedly agree. Because even if it's not a manipulation of reality, it's a manipulation of perception, which, if you get enough people believing the same thing, will generate that reality. That I had a suspicion about, like, the flat Earth psyop, you know, being about that, like getting so many enough people to believe in it to actually like change the shape of, I don't know, whatever this plane of existence is, like, because creativity is it is like an action, but all creativity starts as a thought, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's sorry, I just got off a 10-hour shift. But yeah, no, reality is subjective, but you know, some people will say that perception is reality, but if reality is dictated by these very limited means of perception that, you know, we have as humans, what does that say about like the nature of reality, especially when there's all these other beings that have like different bandwidths of perception? Yeah, I know we've talked about it before, like how cats can see at a different frame rate, and that
They'd see spirits or beings that exist in different frame rates.
Yeah, different frame rates, or even just like the rods or the cones and the amount that they have, and like the colors that they could perceive. I guess like they think that we have stripes or something like that. I know I read that somewhere. Is that like because
They think we have cat heads even. Like they've shown like that the cat thinks we're like a giant bipedal cat with a cat face.
that's
Yeah, I
amazing.
think there's a lot to what you're saying. It's also like a lot of it's perspective, right? If you stick a person's face like 1 inch away from an elephant's foot, it's gonna look very different than a person who stands like 100 feet back and could look at the same elephant. They're gonna see like very different things, and maybe it's really just limiting perspective through like means of like emotional blackmailing and shit like that.
I wonder about like George Lucas. Like, did George Lucas really want everyone to forget the original way Star Wars was, or was that some sort of a psychological provocation to make us try to seek out the original versions of things? Because by him saying that you can't get it, it makes people want it so much more. And people, there were copies of it. So if you could get the Laserdisc or the videotape that showed you the pre-remastered version of Star Wars, then you could see the way things had changed. But today, kids, there's an entire zeitgeist that has no idea what Star Wars was like when it came out. They have only the idea of what new Star Wars is, and it's completely different as new scenes, every scene is completely replaced. And this comes back to the way Hollywood worked. Like Disney functioned under cultural suppression for everything it did from Snow White on, right? When they made Snow White, they bought the rights to the 1916 silent film. They bought the rights to all the books they could, and they pulled them out of circulation. They made sure no one could see the original Snow White. They wanted people to only know the modern Snow White. The same thing with Cinderella, like the 1951, they bought all the rights and all the copies of the earlier 1930s Cinderella movie so that no one could see the RKO one. Alice in Wonderland, they bought the rights to Alice in Wonderland. They got rid of all the live action versions. They bought all the films up so that no one could show them again. Peter Pan, they bought the rights to J.J. Barrie's estate, suppressed all the competing films, made sure no one could do the live plays. There were live plays about Peter Pan. They made sure we're gone because they wanted them to be completely different. Swiss Family Robinson, there was like a 30s Swiss Family Robinson that they destroyed so they could make the 1960s one, the only one available to
I'm
audience
just
for
imagining
decades.
like a bunch of gangsta pimp bosses like, yo, you can't do Peter Pan on this block no more. Okay, you got to get the fuck up out of here.
Pretty much,
Business.
right?
It's actually even worse right now because you can do it immediately with Kindle. You know, if it's like an online thing, you're connected, they can just redact whatever book you supposedly downloaded. And what I heard, I'm not using it myself, is that on Spotify, you could even look for like some old song, but actually it will be a remastered modern version, which has little to do with the true original. And you wouldn't even know because it just says 1970 or whatever, but it's actually a remastered version that Spotify is delivering you and can change at will.
Well, that's a slight improvement on the LimeWire culture of songs being completely mislabeled. I think I saw, or I remember for the longest time, I thought Steve Miller Band's The Joker was Tom Petty, because like that's what I downloaded. I was looking up Tom Petty songs on LimeWire, and that was one of them. Apparently, well, obviously not. I think rewriting history is a kind of what do you call it? It's
a hobby.
Yeah, it's a historical. People have been rewriting history as long as they've been writing it. So, if you control the information, you monopolize like stories or data. That's power. And it's everyone who has power is seeking to control more of it and polarize it towards them, for whatever reason, because I don't know, they're compulsive.
I think cultivating power is like the dark side, and cultivating energy is like the light side. I mean, you could invert them in a lot of ways, like use power for good or sap someone else's energy like a vampire. But essentially, I think like in that Jedi context, it's throwback to George Lucas, but it's like, yeah, power is the dark side, energy is the light side.
Yeah, sure. I would say there's even dual natures to both power and energy. Like,
hell yeah, brother.
There's light arts and there's dark arts, and that they're both valid art forms. But it's just like, how do you seek to be perceived in expressing yourself, or what effect do you want to have on other people by expressing yourself?
Well, I mean, also if you think about it mechanically, I mean, essentially gaining power I mean, for its own sake, can really sap your energy. Meanwhile, giving up power in a lot of things, like, you know what, I'm going to give up trying to be the coolest kid in school. I'm going to give up trying to be the smartest employee at my company. And suddenly you free up a lot of fucking energy. It's like, oh, wait, now I have enough energy to take that dancing class I've always wanted to, because I give less fucks about this other thing.
Yeah, if you derive your power from like the approval of other people, that's like an incredible burden to carry, to be sort of fulfilling other people's expectations of you that you essentially set. Because there is power in being able to mobilize, you know, masses of people, but like in doing so, you can't really. There's no way to do it like honestly. At some point, you know, you're gonna be. It's all disingenuous, and it's just like
you got to play the game. But you
I
know
mean,
what?
it makes war. Go ahead.
Sorry, what were you saying? No. I want to hear what you're saying about war.
Well, I'm just thinking like, because war, you know, like people say that history is decided by the winners. So you look at like post World War II Japan and how the American allies completely took over Japanese education and how it affected Japan afterwards, because they took away their understanding of history. The same as the South, right? The lost cause of the antebellum. You know, this idea that the past is malleable because we can say, well, it was obvious that they were going to lose. It's obvious that they were inferior. This is like the winners obviously has this, which makes them better. You need to emulate that. And here's what was really going on. Your people were all evil, like World War II. Your people were all evil. And you need to learn how to be good people the way the winners were. You know, we're the good guys, so we're going to teach you how to be good guys. War becomes not just about resources, but about controlling narrative. And it sounds kind of obvious or cliche, but it's such a big deal to control narrative that it's almost worth fighting a war just to control narrative, even if you lose so much resource. Because if you can control the next generation and what they believe is right and wrong, right, then you can control what's going to happen in 20 years. And that's the most sustainable thing, is to control a generation's ideology. You can control a fad for a year. You can control maybe like a trend for like 4 years. You can control maybe a culture for half a decade. I don't think anything lasts a whole decade, really, except for war. War can really last 20 years. A war can completely, what happened in Iraq still affects us today. What happened in the Gulf War affected what happened 20 years later that led to the Iraq War. What's going on today in Ukraine and Israel is going to define everything into 2045, 2050. How we look at nation states, who is what, Holocaust survivors. Yeah, I think there's something to the evil illusion of control. Well, just on that point, commercialism seems to actually function better than like you can make a law that people have to dress a certain way, you know, but how functional is that law versus you can convince people that it's cool to dress a certain way. And so advertisements in a way are more powerful than law. Because if you tell kids at a Catholic school that they have to wear a school uniform, they might do it while they have to do it, but they're not going to want to do it. Whereas as soon as they get out of school, they're going to want to put on this outfit that they saw on MTV or on YouTube or on TikTok now. So they're going to emulate something that out of desire instead of out of force. So in a lot of ways, advertisement's far more powerful than government.
Yeah. It's the art of hijacking attention on a massive scale, right?
Yeah, and corporations serve themselves. They have to abide by certain laws in certain territories, but like most corporations are global entities. So you know they sort of like how in other countries they can't advertise pharmaceuticals. But, you know, here in the States, it's like every other commercial is for a different drug. Speaking of television commercials, is anyone watching the Alien series?
I should.
No.
Oh, it's amazing. It's really, really good. It's really well written and really well shot. It's like, I think there's like the perfect blend of like practical effects and like CG and stuff. But yeah, no, it's I'm lament to the new apprentice on site, because he's like 21 years old, and I always say like, oh, when I was your age, Hulu was free and it didn't have commercials. And now Hulu is owned by Disney, and there are commercials, and I'm not even sure if they're like super targeted or
You
what.
can pay to not have commercials.
Now you got to pay like $6 a month to get a VPN so you could torrent whatever you want, unless you have a shared server where your buddy can be gracious enough to just share his weird stockpile of media.
So generally, nothing's changed in 20 years for like the in befores. I don't know. I was interested in the new Alien series because I saw that they had transgender characters, and I was wondering about that because, are they saying, yeah, there's a we're like half women or half girls. There was a scene with the transgender character.
I know
characters. Say it again.
There's like transhuman like hybrids is what they call them. I mean, I'm not sure which commercial you're talking about, but they transferred the consciousnesses of children into dying children into like adult sized and shaped synthetic bodies.
Awesome.
So maybe in that way they were half girls or whatever. I don't know. I'm curious to see. We're only 4 episodes deep because they release them every Tuesday.
My thought was that they're saying something about like the alien being kind of because originally the alien is sort of this new evolution that is destroying, it's post-humanism in a lot of ways. Like the alien is the apex species that destroys humanity because it replaces humanity with more effective traits. And so I wonder about transhumanism. Are they posing transhumanism as some sort of superior to the alien because it's some other more effective mutation that leads to a post-human phenomenon?
Yeah. Well, the whole like the central like conflict in the world that this alien series is taking place in is like 5 corporations all rule the world, and some have like off-planet territories, and there's 3 corporations that have like competing technology. There's one company is making like cyborgs, so they're like mechanically upgrading human bodies, and then another company is making the like just pure AI synthetic bodies, and then another company is trying to transfer human consciousness into a synthetic body.
Wait, wasn't it confirmed that Alien and Blade Runner are like in the same universe?
I'm possibly. I don't know if it's confirmed or not, but
I'm pretty sure. I think Ridley Scott said that, and that like
I would imagine that they have to be. Yeah.
And one of the big companies you're talking about is the Wayland Corp or something.
Yeah. Yep, that would make sense. I mean, apparently, Ice Age, the film with the voices of Ray Romano, Dennis Leary, and John Leguizamo, is now canon, a part of media that can be consumed in the Alien universe. So, because there were people watching Ice Age on. I mean, the first one does slap pretty hard, but then it kind of jumped the shark, shortly thereafter.
I feel like the hybrids in Alien Earth is interesting because isn't it like Wendy and the Lost Boys? So it ties back to this idea of Peter Pan as well.
Yeah. The guy who like designed or like funded their bodies and owns a company or whatever. He was like his company is called Prodigy. He was like a boy genius, youngest trillionaire, and like his whole thing is like trying to tap into the innocence and genius of youth, because he's sort of self-aggrandizing. He's very, very into himself. He's like, oh, parents, they just try to hold you back. Parents never did anything for me. I'm a trillionaire, yada yada. So I'm gonna put a bunch of children into adult robot bodies and then have weird sexual tension with them.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are synthetic characters like part of the Blade Runner reality where they basically have fake, like Blade Runner 2049 or whatever it is. They have fake memories that are installed by the corporations as well. So they're like completely synthetic realities So, but that's exactly what I mean. It's a commentary on how similar we are to that. That most of our realities are fake. Even just watching television, we have fake memories because we all grew up remembering being in school together, but it was really Saved by the Bell or Dawson's Creek, or for me, Buffy the Vampire Slayer was that's what I remember of being in school. It was basically all Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right?
For me, it was X-Files.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah, I loved X-Files when I was that.
I think it's because it was on Fox and it was like a free channel. Every time, like I think it was every Sunday, we went to the grandparents, and then you just watch whatever's on TV as the family attends to Sunday dinner.
But there's a lost reel in that sense. There's not really a reality that's accurate to your life because it's modeled and anchored to a synthetic reality that's being presented for you. So these fragmented reality, for me, like the reason I say Buffy is because Buffy was about high school, so it models a high school in the same way that Friends models a friendship of friends. There's these like X-Files might teach you about how to live in a deconstructed reality where all of this you're hearing about unbelievable phenomenon, you describe them, you investigate them, you find out that there is a tie to our reality in an extent, and it gives you a new approach to looking at a reality. So you're like, well, this isn't that crazy. It seems crazy that this person experienced that, but it makes sense because we live in a world where there's CIA mind control, or there's generally I think that's the big one. Like at least by season 5, at a certain point, you're like, well, actually, half of these abductions are real. They're just not from aliens. They're from government messing with people so they can pretend not to exist. But it makes it, you're like, okay, well, of course people are experiencing this. Where before you might think, well, they must just be crazy, right? But now you have an explanation for what they're experiencing.
Good show. Such a solid show.
Oh, I know. The comedy episodes are like amazingly funny, and the Monster of the Week episodes are like just very like good mini horror movies, and then the plotline episodes are obviously build up and get very dramatic and wild. So it's got a little something for everybody. But yeah, the comedic episodes just make me howl sometimes.
Yeah, they slap. And the first movie was a big deal too. I remember that.
Yeah. I don't. The newer movie with I think the newest one is the one with the Exhibit or whatever. That one wasn't so good, but yeah, the first one was pretty wild. Yeah.
I wish that was my real life. I wish I was Mulder getting fucked with by the government and aliens.
Right? I know, and just
attention. Are you sure you are not?
And... No, but it's definitely sentimental for me too. And I remember that and South Park, because that was like very novel at the time. Like it was like the forbidden fruit for kids my age. It's like your parents let you stay up. Yeah,
for sure. Like you can tell everybody what happened on South Park. They'd be like, "What? You're watching that? That's cool."
When
South
I first
Park
heard
is
about
good
the
for
show,
consequentialism. Go ahead.
When I first heard about the show as a kid, I didn't believe it. I was like, "There's no way they have stuff like that. There's like a cartoon like that on TV." And then I saw it, and I was like, "Oh wow, they weren't bullshitting."
South Park is good for consequentialism because it shows you if this happens and more people react to it and they follow their most logical conclusions, like rats in a maze, like the most instinctual conclusion.
I got one. How would you explain? Sorry, I get your everything kind of fits an archetype, but I need to ask before I forget. What would you say is the purpose of like the WWE fandom or the WWF fandom? Because I remember back then, like there was a big, it still is a big thing, but
it's huge. It's still huge.
Gestalt processing, right? Because it's all psychological processing. Yeah, because it's like I was just thinking about this the other day because of They Live, right? Because in the movie They Live, there's this scene where he's like, put on the glasses, and he makes the other guy put on the glasses. Like, I'm not gonna put on the glasses. It's like, put on the glasses, and he tries to make him put on the glasses, right? And they're fighting, right? But you can look at this as another way where he's saying, see things my way. He's like, I don't want to see things your way. It's like, no, you have, like, I'm going to make you see things my way. And you could consider the fight a metaphor for a argument, and they're having an intellectual debate. It's like a physical version of an intellectual debate. And one comes with one argument and the other comes with another argument, and he's refusing to see things his way. And then the other guy basically makes him think eventually that he's won because he beats him so hard to the ground that he doesn't get up for a second. But then he gets back up after he feels like he's won and forces him back down. And then he makes him see things his way. And this is what wrestling is all about. There's an emotional and a philosophical and a psychological and an intellectual process that's happening, particularly for the primordial mind. And this goes back because wrestling used to be a vaudeville thing where they had, instead of a ring, they had a fake bar. And then you could see cowboys and men who were men, back when men were men, wrestling, like fighting in a bar, in a fake bar fight. And they'd have a dramatic reason that they were fighting in a bar fight. And people would pay to go see this, to see what it was like when wild frontiersmen were in a Western fighting with each other. And eventually
this was around when, sorry, Exertus?
Like 1880s until the 1930s, essentially. But boxing matches also were already becoming more like legitimate. Boxing was a thing, but boxing was different because it's not based on, if you look at the way people eventually moved into boxing from wrestling and vice versa, the theatrics of wrestling and the arguments that happen in wrestling where they're yelling at each other almost as much as they're wrestling. There's this whole dramatic interpersonal relationship between the wrestlers where one is saying, I'm going to show him, I'm going to convince him. And the characters, right, might be the Twin Towers, or they might be the, Saddam Hussein figure. I forget some of the names of the 80s.
The heel
wrestling.
The heel and the hero, the protagonist.
Right. WrestleMania 94. Oh no, she is 94 and watched wrestling every day. I think that's a major point of why wrestling is so associated with our current political establishment with Trump and everything, is because wrestling is probably the most pure form of theater we have right now, because it's an argument that's happening and it doesn't require a lot of intellectual prowess to understand it. You're just trying to see who wins an argument based on who's stronger than the other person. So it's a lot easier to watch than a debate, even though, because a debate doesn't work that way. Usually when you watch like a presidential debate, you have two of the same guys who are friends with each other, similarly to wrestling. They're actors. One is a skull and bones and the other is a skull and bones. They're usually like the same thing, but one's wearing red and one's wearing blue. And at the debate, they'll ask a question and the right wing candidate will have one response and the left wing candidate will have another response. But really, this is just sophist debating. They're debating, they don't really care. And they don't have any emotional investment in this, but they're pretending they do for their constituents, right? The same way that sophists would debate in ancient Greece. You'd have traveling philosophers in ancient Greece, and they'd come to a town, and the town would be having an argument. Like, what are you guys throwing rocks to each other over? I'm like, well, we're having this issue about, like socialized pederasts or something like that. Like, okay, we can argue this for you. What are the two sides? And then they're like, well, they think this, we think that. Okay, well, give us a second, give us some money. And they give us a coin, they give them money in a coin. They take the coin, they flip the coin, heads and tails, they decide who's going to debate yay or nay on the issue. And then they argue with each other, the same as a political debate. They argue with each other. And at the end of it, neither the blue candidate or the red candidate really win the debate usually. It's usually that the audience has had these experts debate for the mind of the audience, because the audience doesn't have all the ideas. They don't know how to debate. They don't have the mental faculties or prowess to debate. They don't have all the data about the nuances about the issue, but they can imagine. They're imagining from the perspective of, this is the devil on the left and this is the devil on the right, or the angel on the right, that these are the two sides. And then usually some middle ground happens afterwards, because it's not that whatever the left said is going to happen or what the right said is going to happen. It's that the audience ends up deciding, well, we as America think these were the most logical conclusions of how we should move forward as a country, right? And so wrestling is built similarly to this, except wrestling is more about the individual persona, like which side that you want to believe in is right. It's deciding who's going to be the hero and who's going to be the villain. Whereas a debate, like the political debate, is deciding what we're moving forward as a country. What's the middle ground? What do we all agree makes the most logical sense?
Yeah, and I also think, I mean, it's not just because like the people involved wouldn't have the mental faculties. I just also think like this perspective is valuable, the outsider's perspective, because no matter how smart you are, like once you're emotionally invested in a disagreement with somebody, like you could have all the best logical points in the world, but you're not going to be coming at it from a lot. It's always going to be tainted with like a personal drive and a self-interest, right? Like I need this to work. That's why I'm so invested in the first place. So you need that, like at least a third person to say, hey, I could think about this a little more clearly than either of you. So start from there.
Maybe. I think a lot of the time, though, the way debates work is really to replace, your own thinking for you. So a lot of Americans are tired. They work all the time and they don't necessarily have their own opinions on a lot of issues. You might think you do, because over the years, you've been trained to pick a side on so many things that, like, this is how the election ballots used to be. Originally, you didn't get a ballot when you went to the election office to vote on. You had to bring your own ballot. You had to bring your own piece of paper and fill in the names yourself. And so often what people would do is they'd go to a bar and the bar would say, we'll give you a free drink if you take our ticket. And the ticket would have all of the things that they thought your community, someone who drinks at their bar, these are the people that would represent them the best. These are the issues you should vote yay or nay on. And you would bring that pre-printed ticket and you would get a free drink, and then you would hand that in and you would get to vote, right? That's the way a lot of people voted, because they trusted in people they thought of as being better informed than they are. And it's sure, like today, people will think that they're so informed because it's so easy to convince people that they have their own ideas, or that their emotional response to someone else's ideas mean that they came up with the thought themselves. This is what media is for. It emulates narrative, it emulates history, and it emulates your own logic for you. So you'll watch a show and or you'll go to a church. In the old days, maybe you go into a church and the church tells you, this is this story, this relates to these people in your town. It's very much like this ancient story that's in the Bible, and this is what was right then, and this is the way we interpret it. I'm the person you trust the most because I'm this holy figure. These are the ways that you should move forward and act in your world. And wouldn't it be great if everyone acted the same way as this? And these imprint your values on you. And you think, okay, well, is this politician saying things that appeal to my values? The Christian right was really good at doing this with the Democrats in the early 50s. And now in the Republicans, I think after the 60s and 70s, right? Like with Reagan on particularly, the Christian right was more and more associated with the Republican Party. But these shift based on who's doing most for the largest constituency. So every constituency is being printed with some set of ethos that they think is their own.
So my suspicion is that the whole Oxfordian debate culture anyways is never about a quest for truth, objectivity, or delivering information, but only one-upping your opponent. And then also, even if you have these debates, presidential or otherwise, there's, for whatever reason, I'm usually watching the debates in Austria. But the beautiful thing is, of course, you set up the Overton window. You set up the accepted opinions, and then you're already locked in because you're within the frame of whatever is acceptable, whatever is being discussed. But the really interesting things that may actually set you free or benefit your own life, you will most often simply not find them on screen at all, or in any newspaper. At least I can speak for Austria. It is an absolute joke, and I can only assume it's the same for mainstream media, but by now even the alternative mainstream media, and you can tell by who's being pushed, who's being allowed to have great viewership. And usually, if there's anything interesting to find, you usually find it with those that have very few to no public attention, because it just doesn't fit the narrative and doesn't assist, the stream and the manufacturing of consent that they want you to do. And one last thing about advertising and marketing for pharmaceuticals. Interestingly enough, because I recently had a project where I attempted to do this and of course failed on Telegram, which many would consider more alternative platform, you're literally forbidden from advertising anything that in any way, shape, or form relates to health or wellness, which of course makes you question who is actually on the back end of this, and in a roundabout way assists the marketing of pharmaceuticals if you're not allowed to even talk about wellness on Telegram ads at all. And those channels that do exist and are big, they usually are pushing, overpriced things which are very questionable, just like with alternative mainstream. usually pushing fear-based narrative, prep yourself forever, but rarely actually offering real solution or the real third, fourth option that is not within the accepted overton window.
I mean, the average person, like health, as far as the healthy and holistically well person, I would think that they would make a pretty shitty consumer, right? Because they're not out there trying to constantly buy like solutions to every new problem that they perceive, especially within their own well-being. And yeah, I think that's probably the most obvious reason why, right? Like, it's just not going to be profitable. Like, I'm sorry, we don't want your ideas to spread because it's going to turn people into shitty customers. Like,
Right. I think a big thing is that if you're not buying things, then they also can use you because they can turn you into a social advertisement. They're like, well, this person's happy. Well, the reason they're happy is because they're on our platform. They're using our product, which is the reason they're able to be happy. So even if you're, on YouTube and you're trying to tell people, and unless you're telling people get off YouTube, just like get off this now, stop watching this right now, like lower my views, please. Just don't even pay attention to me. Just go away. That's pretty, which we should be doing. Honestly, you shouldn't be here right now. You shouldn't.
that's pretty much what I do.
Stop giving me money.
Here.
Stop it. Stop giving me money. Stop giving me money right now.
That's
O'clock, Wiseau, don't read this. Just keep cooking. No.
Yeah,
see,
no, I mean,
no.
seriously.
You can't tell me what to do. I love it.
Yeah, it's true. And these things definitely work better, more sincerely, and I should say, as more of just a hobby or a passion project or just something because, you want to learn, like a learning endeavor or something. But because, I don't know, I mean, when you just don't care, or when other creators don't care, and then I watch their shit, I'm like, I can't stop watching this. It's like some of it's like really degenerate, but some of it's like really inspiring. And I'm like, wow, this is actually weird, but cool.
Do you think you can train people to feel more free by responding the way they want you to? Like, so you feel like you think you're having an independent thought because you think it's a good thought, and it's a good thought because you're being rewarded. Like, is a reward stimuli enough to make you feel free, right? Pre-programmed responses.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if the point is for me to feel free. Like, I feel like I feel the most alive, I guess, when I set certain parameters, and you could call them what they are. They're limitations. So I guess if you decide your own parameters, or if you're in the position to decide your own parameters, then you probably have more reason to be creative. I mean, that's just me personally. Some people might be different.
How can you decide your own parameters though?
Sometimes they're decided for you. Like, let's say, back in the 90s, you want to make a video game. Your set parameters were a certain amount of bits, right? And that means the developers had to get very creative with their parameters, and they did. And thus we have like cool little video games in these little limited size chips. But stuff like that is just an example of it. Like, when you see purely just all maximalist projects, they become too much. And it's like, you lose the point, you lose the thing, you lose the magic.
And just on an aside, PSA, unless you're a 10-year-old girl, do not buy the game Split Fiction. Yeah.
Split
Fiction. It's a pretty woke game, I gotta admit. I mean, it's an interesting
plot,
like though.
From 94.
It's a nice plot. It's about like these writers that are being sucked into some sort of corporation's matrix so they can create their ideas.
Gotcha. Yeah, that
teamwork building.
I just saw the picture and that it just looked woke as hell to me. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
checking this box, checking that box. Okay, it's woke as hell. Yeah.
I was really hoping to look past that and find like a fun, functional game. And there's some things about it, but it just feels like it's not right. It's not right in the head or in the function. I don't know. I mean, okay, so can truth and justice exist independently of what we're told to believe? I guess was one of my point earlier in the question.
Well, I'm sorry. Repeat the question.
We talked about ethics. This whole okay. So what we talked about today was like morals and ethics, and how your ideas change based on what you experienced from what your parents existed, and atheism, and religious reactionism, and etc. But we're talking about ethics and how ethics change and everything. And so we talk about truth and we talk about justice, right? And so can truth and justice really exist independently of what people are told to believe? Because you were saying that you feel like you can be restrained, restricted, or liberated to be more creative and have your own reality. But even you like fast cars because, like you want a thing that was created by a corporation too. Mm-hmm. Like, what about truth and justice can independently exist from outside of what we're told to believe?
I think it's a lot of it is It's an illusion to think like you have to look externally for the solution to that. It's really internal. I think the better you treat yourself, ultimately the more moral and just and closer to truth you're going to be when you engage with everything around you. Because that's the biggest problem, right? We're only really shitty to our surroundings and people in it because ultimately at first we made a decision that did not bode well for ourselves, and yet we had to go with it, we had to commit to it, and suddenly that leads to a chain of shitty actions to try to kind of make up for that. But I really think foundationally it starts with some way we fucked ourselves over, like the cardinal sin of like, don't sin against yourself, like you can't do that because that's ultimately going to make everything else downstream from that extra shitty. So I think it's but the problem with that too is in the atheistic paradigm, it's like, how do you treat yourself better if all you are is your body and mind? Like you're basically treating something that's just going to be you're trying to cater to something that's ultimately temporary. But if you look at yourself holistically, like your soul, for example, or your heart or whatever, like if you take those things into consideration, suddenly you get a fuller picture of how to treat yourself truly well. Because like if I'm going to treat myself, not just my body and mind, but my soul well, then I got to treat other people well. If I'm out here damaging other people down to their soul level, then I'm ultimately fucking myself over too, and that's bad for me. So yeah, I think ultimately it's about truly holistically being just to yourself. Because if you understand how to do that, then everything else kind of follows,
Okay, what about consent? So can consent ever really exist? Or, if collective perception is engineered, is consent even just an artifact of control, of narrative control?
I mean, I'm trying to think like consent for what exactly?
Yeah, consent. What? Yeah. Exactly.
Like, so, I mean, if let's say you're a kid, you're in school, and they're telling you that you can choose, you can't, like on one kid's told they can't wear anything but a school uniform. So you're thinking, oh man, I have no control. I have no way to consent over what I'm wearing. But then in another situation, you're in a school that lets you wear whatever you want. But what you want to wear is like what basketball players or rock stars or prostitutes on TikTok, I mean, basically anything that you think you want is a form of narrative control. So you think you want to be free by dressing like some Tavistock mind control character, but can you really consent, or is it all just narrative control that convinces you you're consenting because you're getting what they've programmed you to want?
That's probably programming. I mean, basically it's a social contract, right? In order for me to participate in this society, I have to consent to these rules and these parameters and these prohibitions. It's how much do you really like this construct called society? Otherwise, I guess we could live as barbarians. Then, like such things, and you have your natural consent, law of nature. But if you're going to participate, then you're going to have to kind of check off some boxes. At least that's how I see it, and I like society. I like participating in society to the degree where if I have to play ball with like following stupid traffic laws, then whatever,
I mean, I think it goes pretty far also in terms of sexuality, because sex is so used as advertising for sex sells, right? So,
oh yeah, that's fucked up. I can't justify that. I really can't. I can't justify like, yeah, I can't. I don't know how to justify like, being like a kid and then seeing like these kinds of things. Just
OnlyFans, right? Like, is an OnlyFans model actually able to consent? Because by the time you're doing OnlyFans, what kind of training was required? What kind of media narratives were required to program you into thinking you're consenting to something that you can't completely understand, right? Or that you've justified that way.
I mean, yeah, but that's the kind of thing that like, that's what makes it interesting, right? Because if you want to participate in the societal game, you see a lot of cool shit, but you see a lot of horrid shit. And that's kind of the example of like horrid shit where it's like, again, I can't justify it, but I mean, all I could do is just try to like disagree with it. I mean, personally, like this is one of the reasons why I can't tell people or force people not to consume internet porn, but I can not do it myself. And hopefully like that changes me on a fundamental level that allows me to treat people better. Maybe not directly, that could say like, oh, that guy doesn't consume internet porn, but hopefully it makes me feel better about myself where I do less shitty things,
Transgender surgery is another thing. Like, can you really consent to transgender surgery? Because how can you completely understand what you're doing? I mean, it's particularly kids, but just generally, if
especially
you're
with-
doing that, aren't you programmed to a certain degree like anyone else, right?
Yeah. I mean, the technology is so bad, right? Like, if you could really do it good, like change a person's entire physical form down to the cellular level, I mean, who's to say? Like, I don't know. You could do all sorts of shit then, but we can't. I don't think we could do that yet.
No, not without affecting the mind and somehow
Yeah.
the inner feelings of the body. I mean,
But they can tell you that you can sell products, like you can sell surgeries, hormones, outfits, makeup, Axe body spray, anything that you need that the corporation will be able to make you more yourself. You just, if you understand this, and so you can consent. Same thing with like sexual norms, like when they define, you know, in a relationship, like can someone, I mean, if you're so good at communication and neurolinguistic programming that you can convince anybody to sleep with you, like how serious do you take anyone's consent? I think consent's an interesting one because so many people think what they're doing is based in freedom, but really it's not that hard to convince people to want things. That's the whole point of the do what thou wilt society.
I mean, it's first of all, it's hard because it's not like a lesson you could teach a kid, you know, like all about free will and like who you actually are fundamentally, because they haven't developed an ego yet. You know, they haven't really gotten the time to develop their shell, their mask. But it's only valuable to take off a mask if the mask is substantial in the first place. You know, I think like some of the most like valuable shifts are when like people are so locked into their material reality and then they just take it off, even whether it's because of drugs or a near-death experience or something that just makes them like take it off for a second and they're like, whoa. I think that alone is pretty valuable, right?
Andreas confided into me that he's attracted to Elliot Page. I have no comment. It's called coercion. I agree with you, Kelly. I agree. It's coercion. I wonder how much any consent can exist in a society built on like dating apps, social media, curated desire, where, you know, super ego models behavior for kids and they see like other people are behaving this way and I want to be rewarded, so I behave the way I see other people behaving. Porno industry seems like 97% intel agencies. Yeah. That seems about right.
It's the Mossad all the way down.
Turtles all the way down. I think there's a lot of evidence though that like some of the most famous over OnlyFans with the most money are part of some sort of honeypot intel agency modeling, like Tavistock, like the way, I mean, because who tried to convince the sons of upper middle class successful workers that they should be rock stars, that they should be drug addicts? The same
Sex
people that try to
gods.
convince your daughter that they should be OnlyFans models, right?
Yeah,
so coercion is huge.
I mean, coercion. So I guess like in their language, they call it leverage, which in real people words is I have shit over you that could destroy your life if you don't do what I do. And I think that's how these people operate. And yet in the information age where everybody's plugged in and willingly give everything about their personal lives, that essentially means whoever owns that data has leverage over everyone, whether it's like your embarrassing porn searches or whether it's some really nasty, dark conversations that you thought nobody would ever see, regardless of what it is. It basically means that the guys on top don't just have leverage on each other, but they also have leverage on anyone they want to like flip whenever they want. They're like, oh yeah, we have his shit. We know what he's into, and just flip him over.
Yeah. I don't know. Freedom to choose. That's an interesting thing. I think we need to talk about more maybe next time. It's just like, what does it mean to have the freedom to choose? You know, like the freedom to surf through like 80 channels on television, the freedom to look through 1 million posts on Facebook, the freedom to say seemingly socially object things on Twitter, you know, like saying things that you think you're not allowed to say, programming you to say them. Really? I mean, that's the thing I see with X a lot. People are saying things like, do you really believe that? Or are you just pissed off? And I think a lot of people are either like really pissed off. I mean, most of the posts you see are from people that are pissed off. There's an engineering effect that has that happen. So Facebook's filled with upset leftists, X is filled with upset right-wingers, and everyone's pissed off. And so they're reactionary. And being reactionary means you're not standing in a place to make your own reaction, your own actions, your own choices. You are completely controlled. So many people are so controlled. I feel like I'm probably somewhat controlled, a lot controlled, but you know, maybe I can make myself feel less controlled by choosing not to react and being able to think about what my actions will be for a longer period of time before I act on them. right? I've been wanting to get a chicken for the last few days. Raf has been noticing this. Like, we've been eating vegetarian. And I've just been like, okay, maybe I'll go another day without getting a whole chicken. Maybe I can, maybe not today. Today's not the day where I eat the chicken. Maybe tomorrow I'll eat the chicken.
I will say
I'll
this
think
though.
about it for a day.
Well, you know what helps me being like controlled all the way down? There's one thing they can't stop. They can't stop me from being grateful for life. I mean, they really can't. They could try, but they can't really fundamentally take that away from me. It's like that sacred act, whether they, rip the tongue out of my mouth or whether they blind me. In my head or in my heart, I could still be thankful. Like at least I got to live. At least I got to make good friends. At least I got to have even one good friend. At least I got to have conversations with my dad, honest conversations. And it's like that they can't stop. They can't really take that away from me.
Today's show is brought to you by Gratitude. Most conscious, I'm scoring them for my bud dealer. If I do Kentucky, where did he say? He said Bud is still illegal here. I say try Bud Light. I think if you can't get Bud, try Bud Light. That's probably what Kentucky wants from me, right? All right. Well, we're 2 hours deep. Anybody want to say anything before I kind of wind it down here?
I do.
Gratitude was a good key.
Besides gratitude, yeah, we should practice that. But also, don't forget to eat your French fries and clear ketchup every day.
Okay, no, clear ketchup is a hoax. I looked that up, so that has been confirmed. It is a hoax.
Are you sure it's a hoax, or is that just kind of like?
Is that the Manuela effect?
Is that narrative control, bro? It's narrative control.
It's a hoax, man. It's a hoax, dude. Don't make me get into it.
Just like your whole childhood, just like Canada is a hoax, bro. It's not real.
Easy now. I just want to say, great to see you guys. Always a pleasure. Thanks for everyone in the audience and the chat. Grateful for all you guys, and this was a great talk. And I hope to see everyone again soon.
Sweet, love you guys.
All right. All I'll say is everyone subscribe to Terror Risk Podcast. Everyone subscribe to Divulgence Pod.
Love to have
everybody
you.
Research Starforts. And if you guys want to support us, you can do through this link, which hopefully shows up exactly for our trip. We're in Montenegro right now, hoping to deliver great information and quite a few videos. We've been doing some drone footage, which hopefully will be fun to watch eventually when we get down to editing it. So yeah, thank you all guys for joining. And of course, thanks everyone in chat for listening to us. Have a great time.
Don't you dare watch this show. Turn off your laptop right now. Go outside, touch grass. Do not go to exertus.com. Do not support us. Don't give your money to me. Don't help me at all. You're just gonna keep me alive. Don't let me live. Like, stop it. Stop trying to help us. Stop it. Stop it.
There's less we